Is it the same tempo as Raise Up Your Bat? Hold on. It is! Today, we're going to be dissecting every new song in Deltarune Chapter 3. We're going to look at all the new motifs that are introduced, what they represent, and how they are implemented throughout the soundtrack. We'll also identify any familiar motifs that might pop up and analyze why Toby Fox might have chosen to incorporate those melodies into these new songs. Yes, we're going to find Gaster's theme. Yes, we're going to find the Freedom motif. They're basically the same thing. And we're going to start off right now because we have quite a few songs to get through. As you can see, I've written out most of the motifs that we're going to be dissecting in this video over here on FL Studio. If you haven't seen FL Studio before, look at it as a piano roll with, you know, each of these notes representing a key. I did this because it's a lot easier for most people to visualize than just looking at sheet music, because that notation is kind of weird and arbitrary, and I don't like it myself either. The first song in the Chapter 3 soundtrack, a song I don't think any of us really expected to appear so prominently in Chapter 3, but it is Flashback Excerpt, which is technically a Chapter 2 song since it was at the end of the Weird Route, briefly. So right off the bat, in this first section, there's one obvious question. Is this Gaster's theme? I've written it out here on the piano. So this part at the end goes sort of in a different direction. It also completely shifts around the interval jumps, which is basically the distance from one note to the next. So if we pull up Gaster's theme, here's Gaster's theme written out. Right, it just repeats like that over and over and then shifts down. So this is Gaster's theme. And if we were to just copy and paste the notes from Gaster's theme over into the notes I wrote out for Flashback, so here's Gaster's theme up here, I'm gonna line up the first note of each melody right here. And notice how there is a bit of overlap right here in these three notes, but the sort of jump in intervals right here to the top, this top note is Gaster's theme. It's a lot further from the previous note than in Flashback. Combining that with the fact that when we shift down a few semitones, we are sort of in just like a completely different chord, right? You can see the jump from the first note to the second note is now a completely different distance from the first half of this song right here. So it really feels less like it's trying to be Gaster's theme and more like it's just an arpeggio of notes matching up with the chord that is currently being played in the song. But that's also something that I actually want to point out, something that I feel like has been overlooked since, you know, the song has been around. Listen out for, we have the first strike of the note right here, this note, and then right here. And then it repeats. So these two notes, this F sharp up here, and then this D, what I find interesting about these notes is that they line up perfectly with the notes in Noelle's actual theme. Or I'm going to be referencing Girl Next Door. I'm assuming it's the same in Lost Girl as well, but this is Girl Next Door. If we go over to how I've written it out over here, you can see we have sort of these prominent notes up here that strike at the top, these prominent high notes. Now, if we move these notes over to the notes from Flashback, and then we just shift them down a little bit, it's the same intervals, the same space between the notes, meaning it's essentially the same pattern of notes just being played starting on a different key, right? A different key of the song. I find that very interesting, that there's a sort of tie directly to Noelle's theme hidden in there. And then there's one final piece of this song as we get into the second half of Flashback Excerpt. Listen here to these strings in the background. That is the exact pattern that appears in the Holy. If you listen to this vocal part right here, and compare that to the part in Flashback Excerpt, the strings in the background. It's the same pattern, right? So Flashback Excerpt is, I guess you could say, sort of, it has elements of Lost Girl and also The Holy, which is very interesting. But anyways, I think we've spent enough time talking about Flashback, so let's move on to Tenna's themes, starting out with the second song in the soundtrack, Feature Presentation. So that little run of, I guess that's brass instrument notes right here, that is the first introduction we get to a Tenna motif, which is, right, something like that. And we'll see this motif appear in different variations throughout Chapter 3's soundtrack, but this is sort of our first introduction to Tenna's theme, which, you know, makes sense. This is the first song where we get introduced to Tenna. What I find interesting is it's coming in a form that's going to be very different to the versions of his theme that we see later. But let's move on to a song called And Now for Today's Sponsors. So right away, before I even get to talk about Tenna's theme, worth noting that the background part of this song, the part that plays right here, was actually a part of the Spamton sweepstakes. I think in the Spamton sweepstakes that happened right before Deltarune came out, I don't know if it was in the original one, but it had a chance to play if you type in a broken URL and you just get the dog check website. Anyway, so then we actually get Tenna's theme, sort of a fuller, a more complete version of Tenna's motif that we see right here. It goes like this. It sounds at first pretty different from the version we hear in the previous song. But if we were to line up the notes so that they start on the same note, so I'm going to transpose it down like this, you can see a lot of the notes actually end up matching up. It's just sort of in a different rhythm. If I just kind of shift this over, things start to line up a lot more. So it is in fact the same motif, the same core musical idea, just sort of explored and elaborated on in a different way. In this song in particular, we kind of hear a call and response between the higher brass and the lower brass. All right, let's move on to the next song called Mic the Board, Please. So right away, that's very obviously just Tenna's motif again, a similar version to the one that we saw in the previous song right here. It's obviously a little slower and played at a slightly different rhythm. Interestingly, in the B section of this song, we get an entirely different melody. So this sort of little phrase right here, if we compare it to Tenna's other themes though, this is kind of just its own little melody. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we hear this specific melody reappear in other songs related to the TV world. But for now, let's move on to Sandy Board. So you get this sort of, you know, Sandy Board musical idea here at the beginning. It's obviously all in chiptune, 8-bit style. And we get, the main part of this song is just a variation on Tenna's motif over here. Sort of in a different rhythm and some different notes, but the same musical idea, right? We actually hear at the end right here, one of the other Tenna motifs. This part right here. It's the one from Mic the Board, Please, actually. It's this. and then it sort of takes it on its own sort of iteration of that motif. But interesting that we're seeing all these different implementations of the different motifs that have been established for Tenna. I do also want to briefly recognize the 4-note arpeggio that people are going to hallucinate Gaster's theme in. This part in the bass line right here. Dun 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 dun. This part in the background. It is literally nothing like Gaster's theme. I mean, just look at it. We'll compare it to actual Gaster's theme, which are these notes right here. This is Gaster's theme. This is the bass line of Sandy Board. And they are not anything alike. If I line up the starting notes, nope, not even close. It's just a bass line that goes up and down as most bass lines do, especially in, you know, chiptune music. And it's matching the current chord of the song as we see as the song progresses. Moving on to Adventure Board. It's a very adventurous sort of, I guess, bass line and sort of reminiscent of the old Zelda games, which obviously this entire part of Chapter 3 is. And we'll hear this bass line again in the spooky version of this song where Chris murders everybody in the original version of the video game that leads to the Shadow Mantle. Anyways, as the song progresses, that part right there, that is a quote of Tenna's motif, iteration on it, if you will. It's actually closer to the original version. Right, that part from the feature presentation song, and then here it is in Adventure Board. And then as we get into this part, so that's an entirely new motif right there. Goes like this. This, we can kind of assume, is more of just like a video game motif, as in the video game that they're playing in Chapter 3. I believe this shows up in some of the Shadow Mantle version songs. So a new motif right there. Pretty cool. Moving on to Query. So this is pretty clearly just another iteration of Tenna's motif. It's the version from feature presentation over here, just on a slightly slower and different rhythm. And as you heard right there, there is a 4-note arpeggio. It is nothing like Gaster's theme. That is not Gaster's theme. This is Gaster's theme. Paste the notes over each other. They do not match up whatsoever. The next song is actually more interesting than I expected. It's Quiz. So that little melody at the beginning right here, da, 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 especially that opening part, I've written it out here. This part right here, dun, 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 sounds like Don't Forget. Just to compare it, I wrote out Don't Forget right here. If we paste the notes over each other, you might be surprised to find that they match up exactly. The distances between the notes, you know, once we paste them over each other, they line up perfectly. So it's literally just Don't Forget at the beginning, which would make for our first and one of the only few quotes of Don't Forget in Chapter 3. Chapters 2 and 3 do not reference Don't Forget that much. What's playing right now, very clearly a iteration of Tenna's motif. It's this one up here that we saw at the beginning. We're seeing Tenna's motif a lot. Honestly, when I played through the game, I had a hard time figuring out what the motifs were. It didn't seem as clear to me as like Queen's motif in Chapter 2, which is like everywhere. But as we're going through the songs, I'm kind of realizing Tenna is most of these songs, which makes sense. It's just like Queen. The next song is Dig Dig to the Center of the Earth. Is that what it's called? Anyways, not that important because it is literally just Lancer's theme. Because it's Lancer. Next song is called Pushing Buddies. Very interesting that this song literally plays for like one scene as a bit, and to my knowledge, has a fairly unique melody. This isn't just quoting a motif we've already heard, this is an original melody right here. You get the funky piano at the beginning, and I think, honestly, I believe this is just like 10 BPM slower than the original Rude Buster, if not the same tempo, but it feels slower. And I think it's because you have time to lead into it with that like piano phrase without any of the percussion and chaotic bass line, right? But you get time to like lead into it, whereas the original Rude Buster, it just starts and it's just like chaos, right? A very controlled and well-arranged chaos, but it's very clearly meant to feel noisy and chaotic, which is the point of Rude Buster. Ruder Buster does a good job of iterating on that in a way that feels a lot more cohesive, right? I don't know if it's also the mixing, but I feel like I can hear the different parts of the song, like the piano and the bass line are a lot more distinct, even though they're literally the same notes, right? And of course, you still get the elements that made the original feel very all over the place with all of these different runs of notes. And I would like to give a shout out to what I think makes this like such a it's such a banger, the chord change right here, the drop into the chord change, this part right here, dude, it's really good. This is everything I would want from just a more evolved version of Rude Buster. It's literally just Ruder Buster, and it works so well. I love this chord change, the change in progression right here. It's really fun. Anyways, next up, now that we've had our fun with Ruder Buster, it's time for a song that you either like kind of brush off, or it gives you intense PTSD because of how bad you were at the cooking minigame. I spent like 10 minutes on the cooking minigame. It's physical challenge. Why is this song 1 minute and 47 seconds long? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Why does it sound like this? It's like giving me a gut reaction. Anyways, that's Tenna's motif, right? Let's move on to Board Clear. So just to clarify for everyone, that part at the beginning, and I don't need to tell you that that's not Gaster's theme, right? As for the rest of Board Clear, it's mainly just this melody. If we listen to it over here, sounds pretty unique. I do think that we see other instances of this melody throughout the soundtracks. So it ties that melody more to the video games within Chapter 3, as opposed to, I guess, Tenna's show as a whole, or the TV world, right? Moving on to Welcome to the Green Room. I don't need to tell you this, because you probably already know, but this is just the hip shop melody. Da, 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 da. Right? It's the hip shop melody. This is essentially just a rearrangement of Hip Shop. It's a really good arrangement of Hip Shop, but it is nonetheless a song we've heard before. Next song is Vapor Buster, which is literally just Rude Buster slowed down with a few extra touches, but it's Rude Buster. There's nothing much we can read into here. It entirely exists as a bit too. I don't know what the deal is with the water cooler bit. It's funny. I just can't imagine what kind of inside joke this is between the Deltarune devs. Anyways, here we have Paradise Paradise. This is such a chill melody right here that's introduced. It's a brand new melody, but we actually hear it a few other times in the soundtrack. The rest of the song just kind of quotes motifs we already know. That right there, that is Tenna's motif that we saw at the beginning. There is also a part in Paradise Paradise that I anticipate people hallucinating Gaster's theme in. I think it's this part right here. We found another 4-note arpeggio. I believe this is the notes that they're playing. It is not, in fact, Gaster's theme, if you're familiar with what Gaster's theme looks like right here. If we bring Gaster's theme and line it up with the notes, you can see it's like almost there. And again, the notes are being played so high that it's really hard to tell, but they are not, in fact, the same. It doesn't line up. It's not Gaster's theme. It's just yet another arpeggio that happens to be 4 notes. Next up, we have Raft Ride. Which I believe, what melody is that? Is it Pushing Buddies? It's not Pushing Buddies. Yeah, it's definitely not Pushing Buddies. But I think it's just a variation on Tenna's motif, if I'm not mistaken. Listen to it, let it play. It's Tenna's theme again. I guess it might be more close to this. But that is in fact Tenna's theme. Just sort of offset by a note, I guess. Da 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 da. Even if it doesn't entirely match Tenna's theme, though, I do actually kind of appreciate how this is mostly its own song. It's very different from the others, especially melodically, and I like that. It's reminiscent of like the old like Pokemon Surf theme and probably some Zelda stuff as well. Just having this sort of theme, a unique theme that plays when you're traveling along the water. Alright, next up is South of the Border. Oh yeah, it's this song. I forgot what this was for a second. It's the funny song. I'm 99% sure this just has no connection to any of the other songs in the soundtrack. It's just kind of Toby Fox going off and doing a funny little thing. Pretty interesting to note though, as I'm sure you probably noticed, that the little bass line sort of Game Boy sound effects that are happening in the background are very similar, or probably the same, to the one it's in Metal Crusher from Undertale. That little bass line going on right there. Okay, going over to sound check. This is again kind of just like on its own. I do appreciate the bit of, you know, this sounds, it sounds like a simple warm-up. You have Susie going crazy on the drums, just hitting a bunch of notes. He's literally just spamming a bunch of notes on the drums, which is why you're hearing that little whistle sound effect, even though there's no whistle on Susie's drum kit. So it's literally just Toby Fox placing a bunch of random notes on the key. I can probably do it right now, actually. Yeah, it's like half of these sounds aren't even like on a real drum set, but it's literally just Toby Fox spamming the MIDI drum set, which I think, I don't know, it's funny. It's funny to me at least, and I know other people find it funny too. Moving on to Raise Up Your Bat. There is a buttload of stuff we could go into with like the lyrics and the fact that the Lost Girl motif is in there and the fact that it's Dess's favorite song, Raise Up Your Bat, Des with the wiffle bat, right? There's something here, I'm not sure if anyone else has pointed this out. They probably have. But listen to the rhythm of Raise Up Your Bat, the way the drums and the guitar hit and the little like organ sounding synth in the background. It's in this sort of swing rhythm, right? Does this remind you of anything? Because it should. That exact rhythm with the drums and the guitar and everything. It's D.OGG. This is the actual sound file of D.OGG. When it's played in the game, it's slowed down by 140.85%. Let me actually just pull this up on screen right now. I'm playing it off of this YouTube video, which is the song in its original speed, which sounds... Is it the same tempo as Raise Up Your Bat? Hold on. Listen to that and then listen to the tempo of this. It is! It's like almost a... Is it the same tempo? Wait, let's actually try to play it. Okay. You can at least tell that it's the same rhythm, right? The same pattern of the drums and the electric guitar. Very interesting. And interesting that, I mean, I haven't seen anyone brought it up. I'm sure someone has. I'm sure there's probably a video essay on it already. Very interesting that it also has even deeper connections to Noel and Des, and in that sort of sense. So let's move on to King of ROLYPOLY, which I genuinely don't know where this song plays. Maybe it's in like an obvious spot and I just forgot where it plays. I either forgot where it plays or I've never heard this song before. Because what is this? Anyways, as for like actually what is this? This is kind of another Tenna motif. It's this melody that I wrote out, which we hear, I believe, in It's TV Time, Tenna's battle theme. And I'm like 90% sure it appears in TV World, and we'll get to those songs like literally in just a little bit. This is also, when it's quoted in those songs, it sounds a lot more like Hey Every. Da 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 da, right? I'm just now realizing in feature presentation it literally just quotes it just quotes Hey Every right here. I completely forgot to mention that. I should actually write notes for these videos now that I think about it. But yeah, so obvious Hey Every motif that seems to be seeping its way throughout Tenna and the TV World's themes. It's very interesting, the implications of that. Obviously, there's a lot of direct implications with Tenna and Spamton and all of the fan art that is circulating Twitter and Instagram about them. Next up is Glowing Snow, and this song was also in the Spamton sweepstakes on the Dog Check Room. Again, pretty wild how much of the Chapter 3 soundtrack we already got just through the Spamton sweepstakes. It was a lot more than I anticipated. I didn't think this song would be in Deltarune because it is just an Undertale song. If you didn't catch it, it is quite literally just... So yeah, it's literally just that melody, really slowed down. Which is kind of interesting. I didn't expect to hear this melody in Undertale. It didn't really represent something significant in Undertale, it was just kind of a recurring motif. Next up is Big City Board. Very, very upbeat starting out right here. And then we get... which is, you know, that melody very clearly just Tenna's theme. I guess it's similar to the way that motif is referenced in a lot of other songs too. And I believe that some of the notes are different because this is being played in like a more of a major key. Some of the notes feel different. But it's very clearly just Tenna's theme. And then this part right here very clearly quotes the Paradise melody that we have right here. My interpretation of that melody feels off. I think I wrote the notes wrong. But that rhythm and those notes, that pattern, is being quoted in Big City Board, which again is sort of more of a just related to the video game that they're playing in Deltarune rather than like the overall TV world, it seems. So that's fun. And then towards the end right here, it more clearly quotes the Paradise motif and kind of goes its own little direction with it, which is pretty fun. And then that was Don't Forget right there. Hold on. Da 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 da. Dang, we got another Don't Forget reference in Chapter 3. Kind of crazy how rare the references to the main game's theme have been in the past, like Chapter 2 and 3. Obviously, it's everywhere in Chapter 4. Then again, Chapter 4 is Chapter 4, right? The next song is Doomboard. This song is pretty funny. So, there's Tenna's theme again. I don't know if I need to remind you, but that's what it sounds like. A little bit more menacing, honestly. And that also has to do with the fact that, you know, you have this little ominous chord progression right here in the background. reminiscent of like old video game dungeons and stuff, like on the NES consoles, NES games. And then over in the Metaphysical challenge, which is the next song in the soundtrack, this is essentially just a a cover of the previous song. It's literally like note for note the same song as Doomboard. You have that same exact version of Tenna's motif. Also, I think those are the Earthbound birds in the background. Is that what that is? That little chirping in the background? Anyways, this song is just Doomboard, but a little bit funnier. Alright, next up we have Peak TV World. Probably like the best song in Chapter 3. I mean, there's a lot of good songs in Deltarune in general. This song, especially if Toby claims, like, I'm pretty sure this is the song he's referencing when he said in the newsletter that he composed this song, like, years and years ago, like in 2015, 2012, I want to say. I would not be surprised if this was a precursor to, like, Death by Glamour or The Core or something. Yeah, that jazzy chord progression right there. I know we're supposed to be analyzing the motifs, but I'm just kind of vibing to this song right now. This pattern of notes. That's the TV World motif. It's pretty fire, honestly. Oh yeah, I'm stupid. This is the part that references the green room, right? I don't need to tell you that. That is just the green room motif right here. Dun 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 dun. Right, that's what that's referencing. I've been trying not to listen to the soundtrack obsessively. I know I wrote out all the melodies here. I've been trying not to listen to the soundtrack obsessively because I want to, like, eventually make a tier list where I can appreciate all the songs equally. But I will admit that I have listened to TV World on loop quite a bit, especially while making this video. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. Here is our next new melody. That's so good. I like this. Does this line up with Tenna's theme over here? Because I feel like it should. That's so weird. It's like one note off of being like a reference to Tenna's motif. But this right here, I think I wrote this out because I'm pretty sure this is referenced in Tenna's battle theme. So that's why it's important, and that's why it's here. Speaking of things that are referenced in Tenna's battle theme, we have, okay, yeah, this part. Da, 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 da. So this is a Hey Every reference, right? If I were to just get rid of this half of the melody right here and just go da 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 da. Okay, the rhythm's a bit off, but you get the point, right? It's Hey Every, which is, again, pretty interesting. I mean, we've seen the Hey Every quotes in the rest of the soundtrack too. I'm pretty sure this is from King of ROLYPOLY, whatever that song is meant to be. The notes almost match up, but it's the same motion, the same sort of like riff on the Hey Every melody. Alright, so we get into It's TV Time. My favorite part is when Tenna said, "It's TV time," and then TV'd all over the place. Alright, so the intro of this song is actually pretty original to this song. And then, here we go. Hopefully you've been listening to this video long enough, and it's pretty self-explanatory. That is Tenna's theme from earlier. Actually closer to this version. Almost. But yeah, it is Tenna's theme. This part is like absolutely like Sega Genesis sounding, in my opinion. But I do believe that this section is an original part of the song. Da, 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 da. Yeah, even without writing that out, I don't think that's from any other song in Chapter 3. We did just listen to all of them. Alright, so here we get into this part of the song, which is, I mean, pretty obvious. It's just referencing Doomboard, because, you know, pretty intense. Dun, 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 dun. Kind of like a Pokemon song, the way it just kind of modulates up. Okay, we have that part right there, which is Hey Every again, or at least the Hey Every part that's referenced in TV World. Right? It's that part. But it kind of goes off with it. They kind of just absolutely pop off with it, really. And then we have the Doomboard version of Tenna's theme. Sort of in background on that square wave. Very interesting that this is all... They're all quoting the same, like, Tenna motif, this version right here. But even just, like, quoting it in different rhythms, and this one feels a lot more happy as the song sort of transitions into sort of a more major tone. The way that this song can honestly take this one Tenna motif and, you know, incorporate some others in there, but it's mainly just the Tenna theme arranged in different ways. I'm just kind of thinking of You Will Know Our Names, which is a song from Xenoblade that starts out this very intense song, but, you know, it plays during these very intense battles where you would probably die very early. And you'd only hear, like, that beginning part of the song was, like, super intimidating. But if you actually end up lasting long enough throughout the song, you end up hearing the more heroic parts, and it's sort of symbolizing that you're persevering through this battle. You're winning, clearly, because you're still alive, right? And you're presumably doing damage. And so shifting into those more heroic tones, I'm kind of a fan of that in battle themes, because it meshes really well with the gameplay, in my opinion, you know, if it's a particularly tough fight. Next we have Hall of Fame, and I don't think I need to tell you this, but this is Hey Every. If it wasn't clear enough that Hey Every is in Chapter 3, here it is. And this was also in the Spamton Sweepstakes, so that's pretty fun. Again, a lot more of the Sweepstakes songs were actually Chapter 3 songs than I anticipated. The next song is Breath, which, I mean, it sounds like this. I don't really know what to say, how to analyze this. It's just this ominous little sound effect. So that's fun. And then we get into the really fun song. Here it is. You guys have been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this. Black Knife. And boy, is there a lot we can say about Black Knife. First off, this song sounds way too much like Toby Fox's Scarlet and Violet final boss theme. We have the Chase motif, the motif from Chase and Door, which notably everyone thought sounded like Nightmare Nights, which is another song Toby wrote from a while ago. So it's kind of funny to see that come full circle, and now that exact melody is being used in the night battle theme. Anyways, now we get into these sort of crazy parts of the song, right? Throw the Chase motif out the window. Here's all these scary, sort of dissonant notes. It feels like a Pokemon battle theme. This is what Pokemon battle themes sound like. They kind of be dissonant like that, you know? And then we have this part. I'm letting this all play because we're gonna kind of analyze this entire section that isn't just the Chase motif. So, there's a lot of questions. The first one, is Lost Girl in this song? Because I keep hearing people say that Lost Girl is in this song, that they can hear Lost Girl in this song. Me personally, I like to think I'm pretty good at recognizing motifs in songs. I don't know what they were talking about. I think it's literally just because the knight has antlers and it's obviously either Des or Carol, and people are just like, oh, I hear Lost Girl. But this is what Lost Girl sounds like. An important thing about Lost Girl is that this part right here, that is the freedom theme. I mean, we can literally take this and go over to where I've written out dial tone, which also quotes the freedom theme. If we just paste Lost Girl in right here, and line up the notes. It is a 1-for-1 match, actually. It is just the freedom theme. Lost Girl quotes the freedom motif. Very interesting. But does Black Knife, does that song quote Lost Girl? I'm genuinely asking this question because I don't know. I personally do not hear it. But if we try and line up the notes, I'm trying to even think where any of the notes would line up. Right here? Is this where people are hearing it? Actually, oh shoot, wait. Okay, hold on. So we're in this part of the song. And then if we paste Lost Girl over the top of it and line it up like this, you can see it's practically hitting the same notes starting from right here. It's hitting this entire run, literally just with these two notes swapped, right? Here's what it sounds when they're played together. Okay, wait, that actually... Okay, you know what? I'll give the people credit. There is a convincing argument here that, at the very least, this little part of the Black Knife melody is, like, almost identical to the part in the Lost Girl melody. Just with these two notes swapped. So if I play this again and then swap these two notes in the Black Knife theme, then we get... Yeah, you know what? I'll give it to you. That is, like, I mean, literally 90% quoting the Lost Girl motif. Now for the really big question, and the thing that I'm probably going to use as clickbait in the thumbnail. But is dial tone, or is the freedom theme in Black Knife? Here is dial tone for reference, which is quoting the part of the freedom theme that I would most expect to hear in Black Knife. Is it in Black Knife? We paste the notes. Now, I myself am looking at these like long runs of downward notes and thinking, what if the notes line up? Which they almost kind of do, but like not quite. What about over here? If we get rid of that first note and just take a look at this downwards movement right here. That is almost note for note. But not really. I mean, that's just like a downwards scale, so it doesn't really fit here. But what about over here in the more melodic section? I'm looking at you, this phrase right here. Those are the notes. Those are in fact the notes. And even the starting note right here, this F from the part of dial tone that we're quoting, it's the same note as the F from Black Knife that this part of the melody starts on. It's just an octave higher, right? To be fair, it is literally just this run down of notes, but even that's not really convincing. But if we just take a look at this top note, where does it fit? Oh, would you look at that? Oh, wait a minute. I think we found it. I think we found the freedom theme. If we just here's the freedom theme, right? On its own, this is what it sounds like. Right? In whatever key we want to put it in. If we drag it up here and fit it nicely over this part in Black Knife, then we get... Okay, it's a little wonky, it's a little messed up, but then again, the entirety of Black Knife as a song, it's like wonky and messed up. If we get rid of this extra note here, and then it's still a little bit wonky. But you can literally see how some of the notes line up. It's just, again, like, the rhythm is off, and then it doesn't properly resolve on the C sharp that it would otherwise. Does it make sense in context either? Like, this is about as close as we're gonna get. I mean, we already quoted Lost Girl, and then I still think this rundown, and then the fact that without this D, it is literally the freedom motif, which is also Gaster's theme, by the way, if I didn't already mention it, but if we just move this back up to the C sharp, there it is, that's Gaster's theme. Alternatively, if it resolves properly like it normally would in the world revolving, then that's also Gaster's theme. Never let them tell you that Black Knife doesn't have the freedom theme in it. If you squint hard enough, you can actually see it. I honestly though, the Lost Girl quote is more convincing than the freedom theme in here, at least from what I've dissected. I think that it's actually a lot more obvious the Lost Girl connection rather than the freedom motif. But then again, by like this weird transitive property of motifs, if it is in fact quoting Lost Girl, then Lost Girl quotes the freedom motif. That part right there in Lost Girl. Even if the freedom motif isn't directly referenced like I was suggesting, if Lost Girl is in here, which it seems like it is right here, then by the transitive property, the freedom theme is technically in Black Knife, which is really weird and stupid way of thinking of it. Anyways, we have a few more from the weird shenanigans that you can do to get the Shadow Mantle. First off, there's Crickets. I'm skipping Crickets. Sorry to all the people whose favorite song in Deltarune is Crickets, but it's not my favorite song because it's just Crickets. Anyways, then we have Dump, which wins the award for most Earthbound song in Deltarune. This is just straight up out of Earthbound. It's a distorted version of the Green Room melody, right? Dun, 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 dun. It's like, I don't know if it's just like a more dissonant version of that, or if like some of the notes are changed, but I'm pretty sure it's just... Yeah, some of the notes are changed, but it's very clearly referencing Green Room right there. So there's Hey Every. I hope I don't need to clarify that. Anyways, these bells in the background right now. If you're wondering why that sounds like Penumbra Phantasm, it doesn't actually, but it is just straight up quoting the Holy, which is this melody. I don't know why it's referencing the Holy. There's actually a lot more songs that reference the Holy in this chapter than like any other chapter. But while we're here, I guess I'll mention that the Holy is kind of referencing the Freedom theme right here. This part. If we swap these two notes, which, you know, same kind of move we did to convince ourselves that Lost Girl is in Black Knife. But when we swap those two notes, we get this. Which is just straight up the Freedom theme. Let's pull up dial tone. Here's the Freedom theme. That's actually Lost Girl, but it's the same thing. Where's dial tone? Right here. Specifically this part. It is in fact the Freedom theme, which is also kind of Gaster's theme. Yeah, it lines up exactly. It is the Freedom theme. Alright, we're almost at the end. Thank God, because I've been recording for 10 hours. We have Sword. This is essentially just a beefed up version of Adventure Board. We hear this melody, which is from Adventure Board. Okay, yeah, this part. that little background sound, if it sounds familiar, that's because it's quoting the holy. Like, that, it's literally just a one-for-one quote of the holy. So, there's that. Again, we're making a lot of references to the holy here. More than in the previous chapters. Next, we have Northern Light. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking, don't say it. It's not Gaster's theme. You want to know why? Because this is literally just Flashback. Listen to it carefully. And now listen to this part. It's just Flashback, like actually. Listen to this part. Dun 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 dun. The little part at the end where it kind of goes, that's how I can tell that it's Flashback. Because again, the notes are sort of so high pitched that it's hard to like make out the exact intervals in your head. But if we just listen to it, dun 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 dun. It's Flashback. And we're getting the sort of hits that we talked about earlier when we spent like 10 minutes talking about Flashback for no reason, where it's referencing Lost Girl and Girl Next Door, which, you know, not a huge surprise that we're referencing Noelle's themes as we approach the Ice Palace. Next song is GLACEIR spelt wrong, as far as I'm concerned. This song isn't that interesting. It's not Gaster's theme, if you're wondering. I'm not even going to bother. This is just an arpeggio. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't really connect to anything. It just sounds, it's just a little ominous NES dungeon song. Next up is Bit Roots. What does Bit Roots connect to? The entire song is essentially just that. But if we look at the notes that we're actually playing here, which is this. If it sounds a little bit familiar, it's like almost the holy. Like, if we match it up, it goes from C to A sharp. We end on an A sharp up here too. So it's not the exact intervals, like at all, like literally at all. But you can see the motion of the notes and the way that it kind of like goes higher in the second part. You could convince me that it is referencing the holy, even though it doesn't really seem like it based on just like comparing the notes. But that's Bit Roots. I love my songs that are like just 2 bars repeated for like a good solid minute. That's my favorite type of Deltarune song. Speaking of which, next we have ERAM. Two notes. That's all you need. I mean, what else do we need? Alright, final song of the video, final song in this Chapter 3 soundtrack. Burning Eyes, which is the fight against the weird Shadow Mantle guy in the game. Did we data mine what that guy's name is? I don't remember. I don't know. So this beginning part, I think it's pretty obvious, but it's directly referencing Black Knife. It is like straight up bar for bar, just the way that Black Knife starts. But what's interesting is, as you can hear right here, that little melody that it plays, for no reason, is Battle Against a True Hero or Power of Neo, however you want to put it. I mean, even just hearing it being played on piano, you hear it, right? Right there. Now, to be fair, this is actual Battle Against a True Hero. It drops down further rather than going up again. But like the fact that the first 4 notes right here over half of the motif is here and present. Like, there's no way Toby Fox wrote this and he didn't realize that it sounded exactly like Battle Against a True Hero, rhythm and everything. I kind of forgot what I was going to say at the end of this video, aside from the fact that we have reached the end of this video. We went through all, 38 of the new Deltarune Chapter 3 songs. We took a look at all the melodies that were introduced and melodies that were reused, went over all their motifs, made some like minor analyses, kind of found the freedom motif in the Knight's theme, so that's something. I'm anticipating that the Chapter 4 version of this video, which will exist at some point, probably very soon, when we do Chapter 4 in a very similar style to this, it might be a little bit more interesting because there's a lot more, honestly just a lot more songs in Chapter 4. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, prove it and hit the like button, and also subscribe to the channel because I upload weekly Deltarune content. Now that Chapters 3 and 4 are out, we're going to be talking a lot about the music. We'll do a similar version of this video for Chapter 4. We'll probably do a tier list at some point. We're going to talk a lot about the music, about the lore, and apparently we only have to wait like about a year until the next chapters. So that's pretty fun. I am excited. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you want to support the channel directly, you can check out my Patreon, where you can donate, whatever you feel like it, but as little as $1 a month will get you access to all of my videos early. Thank you to all the Patrons who currently support me, and a huge thank you to you for sticking around to the end of this video. I'll see you guys next week.